Good morning. Welcome to Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Aldo Moore. It's a pleasure coming your way. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, and thank God we're still alive. I want to say a big thanks to our farmers, our gallant farmers who've been able to put food on our table. Yesterday was Farmers' Day. We salute our farmers, without whom we will not be able to eat. But it's a big debate that's been trending the last 6-7 days or so, and it has to do with some items that the Trade Ministry intends to put restrictions on in order that, two things, in order to strengthen the CD and also to boost local production of these items. But that has been met with some stiff resistance by some civil society organizations and the NDC. The NDC's problem says in principle, the NDC says in principle they don't have a problem with that, but they have a problem with the mode of implementation. So the NDC will come and tell us more, and also some of these civil society organizations will tell us more on what they feel about this new policy that the Trade Minister intends to lay before Parliament. He's tried it a couple of times. It hasn't been laid because once the LI, which is the new law, is laid in Parliament, it would take 2/3 of the majority of the MPs to reverse the decision. And that's why the minority is doing everything possible for that new law to be passed or to be actually laid in Parliament. So that's one of the issues. The second issue we intend to look at is that the special prosecutor has been talking. The special prosecutor is very unhappy. The special prosecutor, in not so many words, is suggesting that there are attempts or his work is being frustrated. Okay, because remember we set up the Office of the Special Prosecutor to fight corruption and corruption-related issues. The Special Prosecutor yesterday held a news conference and said his work is really been frustrated. And we'll find out exactly why the Special Prosecutor feels that his work is being frustrated and what we can do collectively to help the Special Prosecutor. Remember what Martin Amidu said when he was also the Special Prosecutor? He said the same thing. He said his hands are tied and so on and so forth and so on. Kise Jabin appears to be singing the same song. What exactly is wrong with this Office of the Special Prosecutor? What exactly is there? What is it that makes it difficult for persons who are appointed there to be able to discharge their mandate based on what the law that sets it up says they should do? So that's one of the other issues we're going to be looking at. And then the third issue for Inside Pages this morning is that the NPP is organizing its elections and its orphan constituency elections. And it is important to them because these are seats that the NPP does not have sitting MPs. For this particular exercise, we're looking at 111 constituencies. So we'll look at some of the nuances or the dynamics of this particular elections, because this is the first time the NPP is going to hold an election at a time when a big figure within the party is out, and I'm talking about Alan Kyeremanteng. How's that going to be impacting on the internal elections as they kick-started today? We'll also look at that topic. So these are more coming your way. My name is Audu Moro. Thanks for tuning in. I will be right back.
We are going to lay an instrument to control and restrict import, which will go against the WTO conventions. We need an advice as leadership. I'm not a lawyer, but I was part of the delegation that went to Egypt to canvass for the headquarters of AFTA to be brought to Ghana. I was part of the delegation, and I know what we went there to do. So, Mr. Speaker, the very good people who campaign the whole Africa that Africa Continental Free Trade Area should be hosted in Ghana. Now we want to restrict people importing things and exporting things. Mr. Speaker, we need to juxtapose this instrument, the intentions and motives of this instrument, as against the intention of AFTA.
They have told me, the leadership and all of them have told me what is that reported, that it was not against any law. Still, the minority says there's a problem. It is revolting for them to suggest that they are here to represent the good people of Ghana. You think we are here to represent the bad people of whatever country? What the hell are you talking about? We, Mr. Speaker, have all been...
Mr. Minister.
I would draw that. In deference to my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, I would draw that. Mr. Speaker, but we have all been voted for to represent the good people of this country. We, as executive, take the view that it is in the interest of the country that we bring this. If we lay it, and in the end, Mr. Speaker, in the end, the House by a 2/3 majority wants to annul it, so be it.
The Minister of Finance was very clear that we are being consumed by our import bill. This is exactly why this government came up with a policy of one district, one factory, planting for food and jobs. In this budget, it is very clear. For example, and I gave the example of how much we spent on 1D1F.
The Trade and Industry Minister, Katie Hammond, succeeded in laying the is in line with government strategies to improve local production, adding that it will not...
1D1F has not been able to clear even one product. We are not able to say that as a result of the 1D1F. Because of that, today we are not importing into Ghana one of these products. We are not able to say that because of planting for food and jobs after we spend all these billions. So if we want to solve the problem of our import bill, the reason why this is being done, we must address it honestly. That's where we are. But to go back to a very discredited and outmoded licensing regime that has created corruption. You know, the Olenu report has said it. It's a rent-seeking behavior. You don't put politicians in charge of issuing licenses. You know what the outcome will be. We've gone past that.
The minority leader, Casey Alatoforsin, explains that government is targeting to block non-MPP members from doing business.
This government is taking us back to 1967, once again, President Akufo-Addo. I'm worried that a time will come, if you are not an MPP member, you will not even get a license to import something to this economy. That is unacceptable. Ghana is a member of the World Trade Organization. This practice, the World Trade Organization frowns upon it, and it's a clear violation of the practices of world trade and international trade, and it should not happen.
The minority leader called on government to eject the document as MPs do not have the power to do so.
We are urging His Excellency the President to have a rethink, because this is not a policy that we should encourage. Unfortunately, we all know that Article 11.7 of the 1992 Constitution placed a limitation on us as a parliament. The responsibility is on the President and the Vice President, Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, to take action on this matter. Because from what we have seen, this has received the approval of the President and the Vice President. So, Mr. Vice President, your cabinet has approved this. Your government is asking Ghanaians going forward that before you import 22 items, you have to come before Parliament and seek permission. You have to go to the Ministry of Trade to seek permission. We believe that this is not a good policy. They need to rethink about it, and they have to withdraw it.
The attempt by the Trade and Industry Minister, Katie Hammond, to lay the bill before Parliament was fiercely resisted by the minority caucus, who raised concerns over the minister's inability to engage key stakeholders before resorting to lay the document. As the Speaker, Alban Bagbin, has said Thursday, November 30, for the bill to be passed, the PNC General Secretary, Janet Nabla, urged the Speaker to waste no time in ensuring the bill is laid.
You cannot import employment and export unemployment back to your country, and then you tell me that you are looking for jobs for the youth. Where are they going to get the jobs? So this bill is to make sure that as a country we produce for our own people. So we support it in total. This is a good bill, and we think that the Speaker should allow this bill to go through.
Despite concerns raised over the bill being a precedent for food scarcity, Janet Nabla insisted that government must begin to put measures in place to avoid such situations by building local capacities.
These are the excuses people give that destroy this country and food scarcity. And so there's supposed to be scarcity that will help us to be able to farm more, that will help us to be able to get the youth into productive work and other things. So we should not have enough to eat. When we have enough, we won't do anything. But when we have scarcity, that is when we can be able to come out with our ideas and then to develop this country.
She hinted that a future PNC government will not hesitate to outrightly ban importation of commodities that can be produced locally.
A PNC government in the future will make sure that we ban the importation of items we can produce locally into the country completely. We won't come and be doing restriction. We have banned it. It's not coming to our country. Operation Feed Yourselves and Your Industries. How we will be able to do that, that will give us the technical know-how to be able to achieve.
Back, this is Inside Pages on Metro Television. I did indicate that we have 3 topics to look at this morning. The first has to do with the Trade Ministry's intentions on placing restrictions on importation of some 22 items into this country. Will be pretty shortly showing you those items on the screen so you get to know. Now, this is important for many reasons. Now, but first and foremost, you ought to be able to tell someday, of course, if this law comes alive, it's going to get to a point where almost everything that you intend to buy you would have to buy them locally here in Ghana. You'll stop buying the ones that are imported into this country. So we have the import restrictions, products to be affected. We have rice, guts, bladders, and tripe. Now, I don't know what that tripe is. I should have checked. Yeah, my dear, that's tripe. I see.
What do you hear?
That's tripe. Yeah, my dear, it's tripe. Yeah, my dear. Okay, so that's animal intestines, isn't it? Intestines, yeah, and all. Okay, so poultry, animal and vegetable oil. There's margarine. There's fruit juices. There's soft drinks. There's mineral water. There's noodles and pasta. There's ceramic tiles. There's a corrugated paper, and then also paper board. There's mosquito coil and insecticides, soaps and detergents. There's motor cars, iron and steel. There's cement. There's polymers, which is plastics and plastic products. There's fish, there's sugar, there's clothing and apparel, biscuits, canned tomatoes. Derek, do we have more? Okay, so these are the items that, at least when you look at the document, which is called the Export and Import Restrictions on Importation Selected Strategic Product Regulations 2023. These are the items that are contained in this particular document. Now, you do know that in the course of this week, the Trade Minister attempted to, put this before Parliament, but there were some issues with it. The minority raised some serious reservations about the law, and I'll tell you some of the issues that they have raised. In fact, I shouldn't even be telling you because there's a very key member of the minority who's here to tell us what issues they have with the law. And then also, we're told that there's some conversations that's already taking place between the minority and the majority to try and arrive at some amicable conclusion as to what the way forward should be, because the Trade Minister tells us that he's running out of time. He needs to do this ASAP, and the people are asking, why the rush? Is there more than, meet the eye, or it is just an issue of, one, we need to be able to sort out our balance of payments issues, or we need to also boost the production of local products. Is that it, or there's more to it? So the minority is here with us. So let me just say that now it says, let me read this, the purpose of regulations. So the purpose of these regulations is, one, to establish a special imports management mechanism for regulating and monitoring the importation for commercial purposes of the selected strategic products set out in the first schedule for the economic development of this country. 2, streamline and rationalize the import bill of the country to improve balance of payments and economic stabilization, and also to provide measures to conserve foreign exchange, safeguard critical imports, and contribute to sustainable consumption. These regulations apply to the importation into the country of the selected strategic products set out in the first schedule, and I walked you through all of them. Now, the Import Permit Committee will consist of a representative each of A, the Finance Ministry, or the Ministry responsible for Trade and Industry, not below the rank of a Deputy Minister as chairperson nominated by the Minister. B, the Ministry responsible for Food and Agriculture, not below the rank of a Director, nominated by the Minister responsible for Food and Agriculture. C, the Ministry responsible for Finance and Finance, not below the rank of a Director, nominated by the Minister responsible for Finance. The Ministry responsible for Employment and Labor Relations, not below the rank of a Director, nominated by the Minister responsible for Employment and Labor Relations. And then E, the Ministry responsible for the Interior, not below the rank of a Director, nominated by the Minister responsible for the Interior. And then F, the Bank of Ghana, not below the rank of a Director, nominated by the Governor of the Bank of Ghana. And then you also have the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, not below the rank of a Director, nominated by the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority. The Food and Drugs Authority, not below the rank of a Director, nominated by the CEO of the Food and Drugs Authority. We have an expert in international trade, nominated by the Minister. The Association of Ghana Industry, nominated by the Association of Ghana Industries. The Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, nominated by the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The Ghana Union of Traders Association, nominated by the Ghana Union of Traders Association. The Food and Beverages Association of Ghana, nominated by the Food and Beverage Association of Ghana Food. Then the Minister shall appoint the members of the Import Permit Committee. It has and then their functions and everything clearly spelled out in this new law. That, or LI, that's going to be, an LI is simply a legislative instrument. That's going to be put before Parliament. So maybe from time to time I'll be sharing with you some excerpts of this very important document. Now, so apart from this particular topic, we'll also look at the special prosecutor who has been raising some grave concerns about whether indeed as a country we're really committed to fighting corruption, because the judiciary, or some members within the judiciary, are making his work extremely difficult. I mean, in cases where the judiciary should be seen to be, to be assisting the special prosecutor to do its work, the reverse is what is happening, and so he's not happy. And then also, of course, the MPP, today is a big day for the MPP. They are organizing elections in the orphan constituencies, 111 of them. But there's something very interesting about this particular issue, because remember that the MPP's presidential elections, there have been some fallout, and those fallouts will definitely play out as far as these parliamentary elections are concerned. And you've got to really watch how things are going to pan out or things are going to play out. You've got to watch. It's going to get very interesting. But also some very key seats that we'll be keeping an eye on, we'll be keeping some tabs on. That's extremely important. But let me introduce my resource persons today. Honorable Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, hardworking, very, he's loved by his constituents. I've said it time and again, and you can go to the grounds and check that for yourself. He's a member of parliament for the Tamale Central constituency. He was in his farm yesterday. Unfortunately, he's not brought me some rice. Can you imagine? He's got a large tract of, land, farming. He has loads of guys on the farm. He's not brought us some rice. How? Oh, I don't understand. But anyway, he'll explain to us. Because Mr. Joe Jackson is here, and he came here, partly also because I told him that he's going to get some local rice. He likes his local rice. But it looks like he's going to be disappointed because I've not seen any rice. Mr. Joe Jackson, good morning. Yes, good to see you, sir. Thank you so very much. You're so reliable and dependable, boss. Thank you. So, Honorable, it's also good to see you, sir.
Good to be here.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask you where the rice is, because I'll give you some small time. But it was good. I mean, I didn't know you had such a large farm.
Yes, I do.
This is massive.
And I'm not the only person in this. A lot of my colleagues, particularly
into farming.
The NDC MPs I know are into farming. I know
see.
Honorable Soyene is into farming.
Yeah.
Honorable Adongo
is into farming.
Honorable Akando
Okay.
And then the former MP for Yaba,
Okay.
Honorable Tankum.
Tankum,
He
yeah.
encouraged all of us. Honorable Inwisa Husseini
Okay.
is also he's one of the biggest farmers, if you like, around the area.
Wow.
And there are many colleagues of ours
Okay.
who are gearing to get
Into
it.
farming.
And for me, I think that is what the government needs to be given attention to.
Right.
If we are serious
Right.
about boosting local production.
Are you getting any support from the food and drug, the planting for food, planting for food and jobs?
Absolutely none.
You're not getting any support?
Absolutely none. And I was telling somebody, absolutely none. And I was telling somebody yesterday that the difficulty with this policy, which we'll be discussing, is that even local production, it is very expensive now to engage in commercial farming. If you have a farm, let's say 100-acre farm, each acre you need about 3 bags of fertilizer. If you want to properly apply fertilizer, each acre you need about 3 bags of fertilizer for 1 acre.
Okay.
Now a bag of fertilizer was sold at 450 Ghana cedis.
Okay.
So if you have 100-acre land,
right,
and some of us have several hundreds,
right,
it means that you would need about 300 bags to take care of 100 acres, excluding chemicals that you'll be spraying.
Okay.
I mean, naturally, you would have to go for loans to be able to do some of these things.
Right.
Some of us, we had to go for money from people who were willing to assist. And we haven't even paid because you harvest and you are not able to get a ready market for the harvest. As I talked to you, my rice is left in the farm, frankly speaking. I had to find a place to keep them because they were not buying. And it isn't that we are so satisfied, as a country. We don't have enough.
We don't have enough.
And those who are Avnash used to buy the rice from the Yaba area. This year, Avnash didn't come there to buy a single bag of rice.
Hey.
Avnash didn't. And you can check from anybody. We have some few MPP guys, of course, not MPs, who are engaged in the farming. Avnash didn't come to buy a single bag of rice. Because they have been competed out, not because they don't have the capacity to produce locally, but because of the taxes imposed on the things that farmers need to use to produce. So like the example I gave, even the 450 Ghana cedis was considered to be a subsidized price. So if you have, let's say, 300 acres of farmland, you multiply 300 by 3.
Yeah.
So you'd need at least a minimum of 900 bags of fertilizer.
Right.
So multiply 900 by 450 Ghana cedis.
Right.
That is huge.
Okay.
That is extremely huge.
Right.
So I think that the cost of doing business, particularly in agriculture, is what government should be looking at. If we are able to reduce the cost, our local farmers will be competitive because they can, will expand, enjoy economies of scale, and we can produce at a competitive rate. But if you don't do that and you just say that you are putting restrictions, one, we'll not be able to produce enough to feed the country, and the cost of even buying the local rice will be expensive because of the cost of buying the inputs.
Right.
So once we get into it, some of us will not only discuss it as just former Deputy Minister for Trade, but an active participant in ensuring that we produce enough to feed the country.
Right.
What is critical, again, we need to look at, has to do with the desire, the taste.
Right.
In my house, my kids, I decided that we are no longer going to eat any imported rice in Ghana. And what I did was that I bought the local rice, which is very healthy. Then I traveled. When I came back from the farm, and then my niece said, oh, the children say they don't like the rice. So what kind of rice is this? And I said, I am not going to buy the foreign rice in this house again. Whether they like it, they should develop the taste.
Right.
Of course, people are used to a particular taste. So it is difficult when you want to change the taste, but we need that that zeal and fortitude to go ahead.
True.
So when I came, they came, Daddy, we don't like, I say, yes, that is the rice that is available.
Right.
And I'm not bringing in any imported rice. And I believe that several people have similar stories in their homes.
Right.
So we need to do that. And although this needs proper conscious policy intervention by the state and the political will, not outright banning the importation of or restricting the importation of certain products. So when we get into it, Ghanaians would understand the real reasons behind this restriction. It has nothing to do with boosting local production.
I get it.
Of rice.
But I think there's more to it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I guess that Murtala has set the tone for what promises to be a very interesting conversation this morning. But I also need to let you know that You know, typically the political parties by end of Thursday would, you know, by the close of day, Thursday, will send us a list of persons who are supposed to appear on the various media platforms. But I think something fundamentally has gone wrong. And so I'm sure when you monitor, you know, generally across the board, you won't see that many party government communicators talking about, especially this particular issue about the import restrictions. And I think that Richard Anyagba, who's the director of communications of the party, you'd have to really do something about it. I think there's something is happening. Something is not right about the Communications Bureau. You need to try and fix it. Today, the MPP is unable to send us a rep to come and defend the Trade Ministry's intentions. And so there's not going to be an MPP rep today. Well, they called us and sincerely apologized that they can't send us a rep, and that there are some challenges. I hope that they're able to resolve those challenges as quickly as possible so that they can send us a rep, because it balances the conversation, doesn't it? It does. And so we hope and pray that whatever it is, the party must sort it out with the government, and then so we can have them here. So, but so now, for now, we're going to be having Mr. Joe Jackson. Of course, we know the director of strategy and operations, DLX Finance, but as a finance and economic analyst. We'll also be talking we'll also be speaking to somebody via phone. That's Mr. Kofi Kapito. You know, Kofi Kapito has been championing the interest of consumers for a very long time. Well, he's a politician, but he will always tell you Ghana first. And so we'll speak to him as well. He tells me that Alan Chermanting is organizing the Alan Walk for Victory in the Ashanti region. And so he's going to be busy from now till about 9 o'clock. So after 9, he will speak to us via phone to tell us his thoughts, or to share his thoughts about the latest move by the Trade Ministry. So I'll start with Honorable Murtala Mohammed. Now, Honorable, we've all been complaining about the fact that we're spending a lot of dollars, importing a lot of stuff, that some of which we can produce locally, and so it's having an effect on the cedi. And when it has an effect on the cedi, we know what the knock-on effects are. And so the Trade Minister, in his view, one of the ways in which we can strengthen our cedi, and one of the ways in which, of course, in order to grow the economy, and also one of the ways in which we can boost the production of these local items, is to come up with this policy. What exactly are your concerns? Is it that you have a problem with the policy in principle, or you have a problem with the mode of implementation?
Well, Moro, good morning, and good morning to my senior, and good morning to your cherished viewers, most importantly, the good people of Tamale Central. And let me also use this opportunity to wish, I have some few friends in the MPP who are contesting for their parliamentary primaries. Well? In my constituency, I have my good friend, Sule Salfu, the mayor who is contesting to be elected as the MPP's candidate. Right. I wish him all the best. I wish the other two candidates who happen to be friends of mine all the best. They should come, and inshallah, I will wallop them just like I did to Anyas. But I wish them all the best in their success, in their primaries. Look, it is important for the people of this country to understand that this attempted robbery by the Minister for Trade has nothing to do with boosting local, production of goods, essential commodities as they...
You call it attempted robbery?
Yes, and I would explain why I describe it as such. The Minister for Trade, the former Minister for Trade, Honorable Alan Chermanting, you remember when he was appointed as the minister, I don't know whether it was on Good Morning Ghana, but one of the media platforms, I wondered why he accepted to take the appointment, because the actions taken by the Minister for Finance and the government at that time was deliberately taken to stifle the ministry of the needed resources, because they knew that he was going to be contesting to be elected as the MPP flag bearer sometime to come. You remember, I have had the privileged opportunity to serve as a Deputy Minister for Trade and Industries, and I always recognize and appreciate the confidence President Mahama had in me for appointing me as the Deputy Minister for Trade and Industries. You remember when so I understand the activities, if you like, the modus operandi of the ministry, at least to the best of my ability. Every ministry depend on budgetary allocation given to it by the state.
Right.
And the budgetary allocation comes with a lot of items. Key among them are, if you like, capex, consumption, administration.
Right.
But the ministries also depend
Okay.
on IGF, internal generated funds, which augment the resources given to them under the budgetary allocation to be able to carry out their functions and responsibilities. So in preparing budgets of the ministry, every ministry, department, and agency is conscious of the IGF, so when they are looking at how much they intend to execute or projects they intend to execute, they auto factor into their plans the intended IGF they may be generating as a result of activities of the ministry.
Right.
When Alan was appointed, a lot of the IGF for the Ministry of Trade were actually taken from the Ministry of Trade to Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
That's what they did.
And what's the reason? Do you know?
I would explain. I've just told you the reason is that President Nana Addo and his family knew that Alan was going to be contestant. So stifle the ministry of the needed resources. So if he's not able to perform, he may not have the resources to showcase to the people of this country, this was what I did as a minister.
Okay.
And therefore look at it, and that could be telling of how competent or incompetent he would become. So they did that. Now, 1D1F, which by all intent and purposes is the baby of the Ministry of Trade and Industries. It cannot feature under any ministry except Ministry of Trade and Industries. You remember, when they launched their first so-called 1D1F factory, the Akumfi factory, pineapple factory in Central Region.
Yes.
I granted an interview to many media houses, including this, yours. And I questioned why a policy intervention of a government through a particular ministry, and when they are launching a first baby of that ministry, the Minister for Trade didn't attend, his two deputy ministers didn't attend, the chief directors and directors at the Ministry of Trade didn't attend. In fact, the Ministry of Trade offices in Central Region didn't participate in the launch of the Akumfi, pineapple factory. And I said, they didn't attend because you created a secretariat to run the affairs of 1D1F, exclusive of the Ministry of Trade. They created the secretariat, which was at the Flagstaff House. So the chief executive or whatever they appointed to head that particular secretariat was not reporting to the Minister for Trade. So it is very clear what and why they did the things they did. So Honorable K.T. Hammond has been appointed the Minister for Trade. He comes there and he realizes that even basic responsibilities of the ministry, he will not be able to accomplish them without the IGF, which have all been taken to the Ministry of Finance. So what does he do? He must come out with an innovative way of generating money for the ministry and perhaps generating money to line his pocket. And I'll tell you, it has nothing to do with protecting our domestic industries. And I'll give reasons why I say so.
This is serious, huh?
So it is important for the people of this country to understand. The reason why I am saying this, and I'm happy you are having my good friend, Mr. Kofi Kapito, on the program.
Yes, you'll be joining us.
If the intention is to protect our domestic industries, the first decision taken by the Ministry of Trade in terms of the importation of rice and poultry product into this country, they would have avoided it. Under Honorable Haruna Iddrisu as the Minister for Trade, a ban was imposed on the importation of rice by small rice importers into this country. Note, small rice importers. So it was not a blanket ban on the importation of rice. The reason why the ban was imposed on small rice importers and not big rice importers must be explained.
Right.
The big rice importers ostensibly bring their rice and poultry products through the ports. So government can monitor what quantity is brought, how much taxes are projected to get from the import of those rice into this country. Government can even regulate the quantity of rice they bring into the country.
I see.
Because everything is done through the ports.
Okay.
But we realized under Honorable Haruna Iddrisu that the small rice importers were those who were bringing the rice through the borders. They were evading, in fact, I can't say all of them, but they were largely evading taxes. They could bring in the goods at any point in time. The state could not regulate. So the gap, and then because they were evading taxes, they could sell at cheaper prices. So even the prices that were sold by the big rice importers who were paying the due taxes, they were selling at higher prices because as a result of the taxes they paid to the state, they had to make profit. And therefore, they slapped on the products the taxes there, because mind you, it's an indirect tax. But the small rice importers, because some of them were bringing the products into this country without paying the necessary taxes.
Smuggle them in?
Yes, yes, a lot. And I'll provide evidence why I say this.
Okay.
Now, when they all petitioned, the small rice importers petitioned, but they felt that with new minister and deputy minister, less petitioned. They petitioned the Minister of Trade to lift the ban. In fact, they petitioned Parliament. Then Honorable Amadou Sorogo was the chairman of the Trade, Industry and Tourism Committee. Then the big rice importers, upon hearing that the small rice importers petitioned, they also petitioned. Moro, and you can ask the directors at that time. My first meeting was with the small rice importers about their petition. And I started the meeting by warning all of them that no one should attempt to bribe me. If you attempt, I'm not only going to expose you, I would have the police arrest you. When I had the meeting with the big rice importers, I made that statement publicly in the presence of some journalists, in the presence of officials of the Ministry of Trade and their leadership. Because I wanted to do a very fair, honest, diligent work so that we can establish whether the petition to lift the ban made sense or not. Mm-hmm. Now, after that, I asked my minister and he asked me to constitute a team. I constituted a facts-finding team. And I deliberately made Mr. Kofi Kapito to lead the team. Because, mind you, he represented the interests of consumers. And everything we're doing had something to do with consumers. Mm-hmm. Now, I had journalists from pro-MPP media houses, and he knows. I had staff of the Ministry of Trade. I had some members of GUTA. I had a comprehensive team. And I implored my minister, let's find some resources at the ministry. Let's give them the resources. Let's see how they are able to bring in those goods into this country through the evasion of what? The taxes. So that we can establish whether the reasons for the ban was tenable. One, the reasons were that they were evading taxes. Two, they could bring in the goods at any point in time, and they could sell at cheaper prices. When Mr. Kofi Kapito and co engaged in this activity, they finally submitted their report, which was very clear. That yes, they were able to evade taxes, they could bring in the goods, the crass corruption at the borders between Ghana and Ivory Coast, and many other places that they were bringing those goods. So the recommendation was that we should maintain the ban. So it is not for nothing that we were able to reduce the importation of rice into this country in 2014 by 40%, and improve the production of local rice by 60%. It is not for nothing that we're able to maintain the amount of money we spend as a state in the importation of rice and poultry products into this country as low as a little over $500 million. When this government took over, the first policy decision by the Ministry of Trade was to lift the ban. So that is why the argument is, it has nothing to do with protecting our local, industries. It has to do with what I stated earlier. They lifted that, and that explains why today the Ministry of Trade, Government of Ghana, is spending over $2 billion in the importation of rice and poultry products into this country. If they had heeded what we did, if they had followed through and maintained the ban, based on evidence provided for the maintenance of that ban, a work that was done by led by a known MPP person, if they had done that, these problems wouldn't have been there. So the argument that it is meant to protect the domestic industry is an absolute lie. That is not true. Again, Komenda Sugar Factory, if you look at the list of items they describe as essential commodities, which they think that they should import them, include sugar. We don't produce a kilo of sugar in this country. Not even one. The only factory which government established, President Mahama established to produce sugar, was the Komenda Sugar Factory. The Komenda Sugar Factory was in fact, the loan was in two tranches. One, putting up the factory, and two, producing the needed raw materials to to feed the factory. Now, I had some of our friends. You remember when we established the factory? The MPP in Parliament, then minority, held a press conference. The press conference was chaired by that incompetent former minister for Agric. And they said they condemned it and used the most bizarre reasons. They said that even one of the condemnation, that where the factory was established is closer to the sea. And therefore, having a factory there to be rustling, ridiculous. Now, we built the factory 6 months ahead of the date. And therefore, if you give a contractor a contract to build it, when they finish, they hand over. Now, we had started the process of accessing the other tranche of the loan, which was meant to supply the needed raw materials for the factory. So because we finished 6 months ahead of the scheduled date of completion, we started, because when they were doing, we monitored, and we realized that no, we'll be able to finish this factory ahead of the scheduled date. So we started the process to access the $24 million loan. In October 2016, Parliament approved that loan. And we started the nursery plantation through money we got from EDIF, now Exim Bank. So we got that money to start. As and when the process goes through and we access the $24 million, we pay Exim Bank. This government came, what happened? When they won the elections, they never made the attempt to access that money. They never made the attempt to access the 24 million. Because Parliament had passed it, they just needed to go through the processes to access the money. The nursery plantation we started were all allowed to rot. We never said that the Commander Sugar Factory was going to take care of the sugar need of this country. But visionary President Mahama, what we said was that Commander Sugar Factory, if for nothing at all, they were going to provide sugar to our pharmaceutical industries. By the way, President Mahama had given money as much as $25 million, Ghana cedis, to selected pharmaceutical companies. And the reason why he did that, we realized that the product of these Ghanaian pharmaceutical companies met the WHO standard. So President Mahama wanted to find out, if you produce quality product certified by the WHO standard, why is it that you are not able to produce enough for domestic use and even take advantage of the sub-regional market? Because there were factories in Egypt, in South Africa, in Nigeria, who took advantage of the sub-regional market. They said, look, we have the capacity, the quality. The only difficulty is that we don't have the resources. So President Mahama made money available, 25 million Ghana cedis, to these selected pharmaceutical companies. And in fact, the records are there for everybody to see. They did not only expand their production, they improved upon the quality of the products they were churning out. They increased the number of people who worked there. So they created more jobs. They were able not to produce enough for the domestic market. They took advantage of that yearning huge sub-regional market. And go and check the books of those selected pharmaceutical companies. NS Chemist, Danada mentioned them. Go and check. They have improved as a result of the direct assistance given to them. Now, with the Commander Sugar Factory, President Mahama's view was that even if we are not able to produce enough to feed the domestic market for a start, let them supply the pharmaceutical companies with the sugar. Because we are told over 30% or 40% of the product is produced from sugar. So if we give you money to expand, why would you be using that money to import sugar? So when we establish a sugar factory, if for nothing at all, they will supply you with the sugar you need to run those factories. So what happens? The money remains in Ghana. This government allowed the Commander Sugar Factory to rot. Isn't it ironical that PricewaterhouseCoopers did, what do they call it, the valuation of the Commander Sugar Factory?
Yes, a valuation of it, yes.
It was around $50-something million.
It actually came down to about $12 billion US.
Only a year after, this same entity did it and said it was just around 12. Our information was that PricewaterhouseCoopers didn't do the second valuation.
You mean
so it was a criminal-minded intended to sell the factory to their cronies and friends at that absolute downgraded price. Let me tell you, this government claimed that they are doing a lot at Commander, and I challenge them to tell us one metal they have added in the Commander Sugar Factory. They said that the Commander Sugar Factory could not produce sugar. Captain Smart, I remember one night, as late as 1 a.m., he called me The calls were just incessant. I said, who is calling me at this time? And I picked the call. He introduced himself to me as Captain Smart, that they were at Commander. They are coming to do an independent work. But then he was working with multimedia, friends of this government, that they were coming to do an independent work to establish whether the factory produces sugar or not. And they said they won't allow them entrance. I asked him to give the phone to the gentleman that he gave the phone. I instructed they should allow them to go and do the work. There are videos. They went through the process from cracking up to the production of sugar. So the Commander Sugar Factory, at the time it was handed over to us, they produce sugar and have videos. I can make them available to your station to play it. Yet, they went ahead saying that it could not produce sugar. Some even asked the most bizarre question. How do you establish a factory without the raw materials? As if sugarcane takes years to be ready for harvest when you plant. The factory had a lifespan of 3 years to complete. And therefore, sugarcane, maximum 6 months, you plant it, you should be harvesting. Did they expect us to plant, harvest, and put it down? Plant, harvest, and put it down for that number of years? So it never made any sense to argue that we needed to have started the production of the raw materials while building the factory.
Okay.
So what I'm simply saying, this has nothing to do with the protection of domestic industry. But you see, some of the goods, the products. Now, I am not an economist. I attended a program, I said, but at least I attended Ghana Secondary School in Tamale, so I will appreciate it than Dr. Bawumia, who attended Sanargo Experimental. He attended Tamale School. That is why, with a PhD in economics, he simply can understand basic economic principles. Why? Now, you live in a country where poultry farmers, in fact, I used to have poultry. My poultry farm collapsed in 2019. So I was not engaged in only rice production and cattle rearing. I also had a poultry farm. At Sanargo, I had a plot of land there which I used. It collapsed. The reason why it collapsed, not that I didn't have the capacity, the expertise to produce, to maintain the factory. The only reason why it collapsed was that the feed was expensive. So you live in a country where your poultry needs, your poultry farmers can only produce 1% of your consumption of poultry, 1%. You live in a country where the other basic, you don't produce 1 kilogram of sugar. You live in a country where the soft drinks they claim, as a matter of fact, they do the finished products here. So even if you are banning soft drinks, which one are you banning? Now, when you impose restrictions on them, it means that you are protecting the market from being flooded with imported poultry. Is that not the case?
Yes.
You only do so when you have the capacity to produce locally. But if you are unable to do that, and you don't do it gradually, the price of poultry locally will escalate. That's what it means.
Due to shortage.
Due to shortage, because you are not able to produce enough.
Yes.
The price will escalate. And once the price escalates, who suffers? The consumer, whose disposable income is already nothing to write home about because of the maladministration and the mess occasioned by the crass incompetence. That consumer will not be able to live well because you need that protein. Again, you do so systematically. Put in the necessary measures, boost the production of local rice, boost the production of poultry, increase the production of things that you have competitive cost advantage, or they will say comparative cost advantage.
Right.
Now, provide the necessary incentives so that they can increase their production. Once they increase production, they'll be able to produce at a larger scale and therefore enjoys what the economists call economies of scale.
Right.
It simply means the advantage you drive or the benefit you drive as a result of producing in a large scale.
True.
You buy those inputs, because you buy them in bulk, the cost of buying them is cheaper.
Right.
And therefore, your end product, the cost of producing will be cheaper and you can be competitive. My last point.
Right.
How do you do this? At a time when you are housing the Continental Free Trade Area, one of the criticisms of AFTA has been that our local industries will not be able to compete, because with AFTA, what then happened is that pharmaceutical companies in South Africa, who are already enjoying economies of scale in Nigeria, can freely bring in their products into this market, into the Ghanaian market, without much restriction. And because they produce at cheaper cost, they are able to sell at cheaper prices.
Okay.
And therefore, they will compete away your domestic industries.
Right.
So what responsible governments do is what President Mahama intends to do with the 24-hour.
Okay.
The 24-hour is not an entirely a complete panacea to our domestic product need, but it provides the opportunity, a platform on which our domestic industries are able to leap and jump.
Right.
But once you do so with those incentives, like the example I gave with the pharmaceutical companies, they expand growth. But the government is the biggest consumer. Government is the biggest consumer. If government Nigeria, and I had people rather ignorant submission, that Nigeria was able to ban the importation of rice. It took Nigeria about 5 years of planning policy intervention until they announced it. What Nigeria did was that we are a huge country. We have the capacity to produce a lot of rice, but we spend so much money in importing rice. Right. So Nigeria came with the policy intervention to boost agriculture, increase productivity, reduce the cost of production. Fertilizers were virtually made free. Combined harvest tractors were made available. When they got to the stage, they then realized that we can produce at least enough. Then they came out with that policy. The policy was not just banned. Every government institution and state function, the rice you are using should be rice produced in Nigeria. You haven't done that. NADMO, every item, soap, detergent, food beverages, rice.
Are all imported?
In NADMO is bought with our money.
Yes.
Every item they have in NADMO are imported. So when this government comes out with their tricks to tell you that they are imposing this restriction because they want to protect domestic industries, tell them it's one of the means to rob the state, to line the pockets of certain individuals.
All right.
What's the name? The food they give to students.
The school feeding.
School feeding.
Yes.
What rice do they use to feed the people? So what responsible governments do, as NDC captured in our 2024 manifesto, which will be made available, there's a direct government policy instructing that food items that are supplied at state functions should be food produced in this country. NADMO should not supply rice that is imported. Okay. And all those things are going to boost the local production so that we'll be able to solve it, not this absolute thievery that is attempted to be perpetrated on the people of this country by not just the Minister for Trade, the entire government.
Where do you stand on this? Is this just the idea? I mean, is it at the conceptual level or the implementation level? And if it's about the conceptual level, do you have any suspicions about the real intentions, the real motive? Or for you, that's not the elephant in the room. It's about how this policy will be implemented. I don't know where you stand. What's your perspective on this? Okay.
I really want to acknowledge my good friend, Sidney Casely-Hayford, who passed away yesterday.
Yeah, the financial analyst.
And really, my heart was heavy when I found that he has passed away. And I want to take this platform. He's somebody that thought about Ghana, felt about Ghana, led Occupy Ghana, and was a big voice on platforms like this, always
in the media space,
always talking. You may disagree with him, but you cannot disagree with his passion for Ghana.
Right.
And I want to say that may his soul rest in peace. Now, back to the issue at hand. I at some points, right, I wanted to jump up and cheer for my brother here. If you follow me, especially on Twitter, you know exactly where I stand on this issue.
Okay.
This is a policy to make the poor man suffer and the politician to enjoy.
When the city gets strengthened, how does the...
Slow down.
Okay.
I'm the biggest proponent for strengthening the city.
Okay.
For import substitution. For us to eat what we grow and grow what we eat. But this is not the way.
Really?
This is not the way. Listen, it's very simple. When you want to boost import local production, right? The first thing you do is to make your products competitive. Remember, when I go to the shop, taste aside, the reason why I don't buy a bottle of Sobolo and I buy a bottle of Coke is really simply this. The price of the Sobolo is high. Have you tried buying a bottle of Sobolo?
Yeah, it's quite expensive.
Very expensive.
The packaged ones.
The packaged ones are expensive.
Yeah.
Even local rice. Even the local rice. And I'm very proud to say that I eat local rice. I eat the parboiled. It's healthier. It's
more nutritious, actually.
If there's anything I have against the big rice importers, is how much they have helped move the Ghanaians' taste to the bleached rice that we eat, which is thoroughly unhealthy. But put that one aside. You see, if you want to increase local production, the first thing you do is you make your production competitive. Put in place interventions that will make your production competitive. I have financed Shinkafa Boni in the Tamale region, local rice producers. I have financed, we did a 3-part deal with Avnash, Shinkafa Boni, and Delex Finance to finance rice production.
Right.
So I come to this not only as an economist with some, I have been in the trenches.
You're a player. You're an actor.
I've lost money.
In the space. Oh, you lost some money?
Yes, I lost money. And in losing money, I came to understand some of the things that happen. You want to boost local production? Where are the combined harvesters? Because, you know, very simply, if the rice stays too long on his farm without being harvested, number one, there's the risk of bushfire. Number two, by the time he takes it to Shinkafa Boni or whoever wants to mill that rice, it will be too dry and you get a poor price for it.
Oh. And
there'll be a high breakage issue. You have to give him fertilizers, not just at the right time. You have to give him access to finance. So when you come to me and you say, I want to put an import licensing regime for rice, I say, where is the plan? Where is the roadmap? Where is the plan that will take us from here to there? In that way, listen, every import licensing regime means increased prices, period.
Is that simplistic?
It's that simplistic.
Explain.
When there's no license, a license is just a barrier to entry.
Right.
A license is one more hurdle to be jumped.
True.
When there's no license, I take my money, I cross the border, I buy rice from Togo, I buy rice from Ivory Coast, and I bring it in. And I sell it at whatever small margin.
Right.
It's essentially, it becomes a competitive market, and everybody's competing against each other, and the prices are falling.
Right.
When you put a licensing regime, you've stopped people from buying, right? What you're then doing is, obviously there'll be less players, and what will happen is that the price will go up.
It's as simple as that.
As simple as that. But we do that for a bigger reason. The reason being that ultimately I want the rice to be local because my forex is killing me. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I want Ghanaians to be richer and provide employment. So even though I know the prices will rise marginally or very high, I have measures in place for the greater good. And the greater good cannot happen on day one. So when you introduce a policy like this, where is the mitigation for the price rises?
Okay.
Where is the roadmap to increase local production? Listen, I've heard over and over from poultry farmers. Poultry farmers have just dropped out of the market.
Right.
The few left, they produce eggs because the eggs don't travel that well.
Okay.
So there's some advantage in producing eggs locally. Even then, we import eggs, but put that one aside. Your feed is expensive. The taxes on the inputs in the poultry market are so expensive. Where's the plan? For me, this just smacks, and I'm just picking a few items. There are a number of items, right? This just smacks to me as a way in which somebody wants to make some chop by signing a license. Listen. When we say I say Ghana is a corrupt country. Anybody who can convince me,
such an emphatic statement.
Yes, anybody who can convince me that any of us, knowing with this country, believes that you can get that license without having to pay something is a liar. Moro, do you believe that?
I don't believe that. That's true.
Honorable, do you believe that?
You would have to grease palms.
You have to grease palms.
Yes, you have to grease
so
palms.
all that you're doing is you have a process that will increase prices, and you have the process that will move money into the grease palms. Yes. Remember, the greasing of the palms is going to result even in higher prices.
Yeah, because I've got to factor that into
Of course, nobody goes into business to lose.
Right.
I, sitting here, assure you that if this LI will be passed, I'll be sitting in my office in the months to come, and somebody will bring a sheet of paper and say, Uncle Joe, I just bought this license for 15% of the value. Can you finance me?
Okay.
Maybe I will finance it. Just maybe I will finance it.
Yes.
But it's wrong. And we shouldn't agree to this. If you want to bring this policy for us to look at, let us see the mitigation for the higher prices that the common man is going to see. Let us see the roadmap. And you see, the roadmap cannot be blanket. The roadmap has to be product specific because each product has different issues. The issues with rice are different from the issues with poultry. And what's this Yemadia business? Yemadia is a byproduct of cattle and the livestock. So forgive me, when you ban Yemadia, you must obviously have some real. And listen, tripe is cheap meat. Tripe is cheap protein. You're banning the cheapest protein available. You don't buy tripe because you have money to buy you buy tripe because it is cheaper. What are you talking about? My stand is clear. This is just a scheme to rob the poor man and enrich the politician. And I could go on and on and on. I ask for two things. Show me the mitigation for the poor man. Show me the roadmap per product, not blanket roadmap, per product. Show me that roadmap. And then we can start to have a conversation about whether this policy would work. As for me, where I stand, what I've seen with this LI as at the moment, I'm prepared to go and stand in front of Parliament House and hold up a placard and say the poor man is suffering. And the rich men and the rich politicians are going to get more money. This is bad. I lived through the 70s.
Okay.
I was a young man, but my eyes were open.
Right.
And we had an import licensing regime during at some point in time. And I know how we used to queue for products. Queue. You see, the people who are talking about this thing now, they haven't seen a queue for products. They haven't seen me going to school and going to stand in a queue so that I can buy a few tins of mackerel to take to school. Please, let's not return to the bad old days.
Are you suggesting KT Ahmad has never seen that before? He should be old enough.
I don't pretend. There's no art to find the mind's construction in the face, so I don't pretend to know KT Ahmad's idea. But I disagree with this policy he's brought up.
Okay.
I don't pretend to know, so I'm not going to go there. Right. But I disagree with the policy, and we can even disagree even if we are friends. Unfortunately, I don't know him, so there's no. But let me tell you something, Moro. When did we get to this space where the party that was supposed to be liberal, the party that was supposed to be conservative about expenditure, the party that was supposed to be about small government is now the most populist regime we have. They are out socializing the socialist guys.
Right.
I mean, this is plain wrong. I promise you that the people whose ideologies I heard talking about the MPP, they must be turning in their graves now.
But there's also, but there's no, but you see, the thing is, sorry, we may sound like we're digressing a bit, but I think you've raised a very important issue, because typically when a party comes to government, you want to see a lot of their policies and programs driven by their ideology or their philosophy. We are saying that there appears to be a certain shift.
Knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, but the thing is, but there's no ideological purity. Sometimes you have to do what works.
Forgive me, right?
Yes.
If there's no ideological purity,
what are we doing?
Then what are we doing? Why are we selecting between the two? What's the difference?
That's a good question.
What's the difference?
Let me just say that. Okay. Please, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Moro.
Yeah.
There's
got to be a difference.
There's got to be a difference. There's got to be a difference in plan
for people to choose.
And you've got to be telling me. You see, why I'm dead set against this policy,
right,
is that it doesn't seem to be a well thought out policy. If it was well thought out, outlined, was truly a policy like this with this number of products, will have a booklet as thick as this, outlining the plans and giving me some statistics. Where are the statistics that go with this? Product by product. This is how much Ghanaians consume. This is how much local production there is.
Yeah.
These are the problems we've identified.
Yeah.
This is how we are going to solve those problems. And this is how we are going to mitigate the short-term price rise.
Okay, so I get that. The point you're making is Ghanaians consume 1 million, so in monetary terms, $1 million worth of rice every year. We're able to only produce, say, 200,000 or 300,000 US dollars here locally. So we import $700,000 into this country. There must be a plan that says we are going to boost local production of, so we use rice as an example. We're going to boost the local production of rice every year by 200,000 Ghana cedis.
Thank you, Mo.
So in 4 or 5 years' time, we should have been able to cover the entire space.
And it's not just this. These are the interventions
we intend to make.
And we are signaling to the market.
Yeah.
You see, otherwise all you're doing is that production won't improve.
Okay.
And all that will happen is that the licensing regime will be king.
I agree with you.
And the related chop.
0249 155 646. That's the WhatsApp line. 0249 155 646. We're interrogating the policy intervention that a Trace Ministry intends to make in dealing with the importation of some selected items. They call them strategic items, 22 of them. He says, these are items that we have the capacity to produce. And so why do we import them? Let's put up a committee where you have to come and actually apply with terms and conditions. And then you're given the license to import those items into this country if the government deems it necessary. If the government doesn't deem it necessary, you will not be allowed or permitted to import those items. Now, critics of this policy are saying when you do that, you will bring about shortage of these same items. And when there's a shortage, the prices will go up. It's economics. Demand and supply. If there's shortage, the prices will go up. If there's more of the items on the market, the prices go down. And Mr. Joe Jackson said we don't want a repetition of what happened during the Champions era. And so there's got to be a rethink. So in fact, what you're saying is that let's jettison this whole thing. For you, it's not even about the mode of implementation. For you, it's about we don't even need this. I've heard some people say, and I'm going to ask Honorable the same question. This thing must be more market-driven than regulation-driven.
Moro, let me summarize for you.
Okay.
This is an intervention to ultimately boost local production.
Well, ostensibly.
Yes. Why is the emphasis on the licensing and not on the boosting? Why is this LI not about the policy interventions we are going to do to boost local production of A, B, C, D?
Because it's based on the assumption that if we do not discourage
No, I'm just saying. We
will not boost the local production.
I'm just saying that local, you see,
yes,
import licensing does not mean you are boosting local production.
Yes.
So if you seem to have put the cart before the horse.
I agree.
What you should be telling me in this LI is that I want to boost production in this, by these interventions.
Yes.
I would be cheering for you. And then side by side with this, one of the policy interventions is to limit importation so that those, when production is boosted, they will have a market for their products.
Okay.
How can you start licensing without, forgive me, isn't this the same regime that told us that a Kofi wouldn't work because they didn't have raw material?
Right.
Forgive me, the analogy for me is the same.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. You say, I want to boost local production. I'm cheering for you. I'm happy for that. But where is the intervention? I'm even happy with you giving me some intervention and us having an interrogation and say, oh, this is the right way to go, but could you adjust it this way and adjust it this way?
Right.
Let's have that kind of conversation.
Okay.
But the conversation is not about the interventions.
Okay.
The conversation is about the licensing.
Right.
That leads me to believe that in somebody's heart, it is the licensing that is the issue, and not the intervention to boost local production.
Okay. So for you, that's what the emphasis should be.
Yes.
So hold on. So when we put in the right interventions and local production is boosted and we have more than enough and become self-reliant, then what?
You see,
so then you can go ahead and ban.
Listen, what do? I say, Honorable Mutala, you have a farm. Can I help you take production up from 10 tons to 20 tons?
To 20 tons.
Right? Now, remember, even one of the biggest things I learned from rice is that the strains we plant, they make our yields poor. We need improved rice strains to improve the yield.
Okay.
And so the yield per acre of the farmers is horrible.
Okay.
I learned that only by trying to finance the business. Right? So when I'm coming to him, I say, I want to improve your yields. So I'm going to CSIR and I'm going to give you a better strain of rice. I'm going to give you access to funds. You know what? DLX Finance, come. You've done rice before. I'll give you 80% guarantee so that you can finance them at this capped interest rate. Because remember, our interest rates are high. And then I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do that. As part of my interventions, because now he's committed to give me 20 tons, every year I'll take 10 tons out. And by the 5th year, we should be close to what? We should be close to self-sufficiency. So at that point, so you see, the licensing is just one of the interventions. The licensing cannot be held up as the reason why you went to school.
I totally understand you, and I get the point you're saying. But here's the thing. Here's the question, Mr. Joe Jackson, Honorable Mutala Mohammed. Can we really give the kinds of interventions that would beat the likes of China, Vietnam, Indonesia, and give them a run for their money?
We can.
If we look at, because you talked about access to capital, right? These are countries that are giving their farmers nearly zero interest rate on access to capital. Can we do same?
Hello.
Can we fight them? Can we match them boot for boot?
Hello.
Shouldn't we get real?
Hello.
Okay.
Why not? Why not? The only thing we're not doing right is that we expect it to happen naturally.
Okay.
These countries didn't get to where they are
overnight.
We can't match them because the guy.
I will beg you. I'm told that Mr. Kofi Kapito, and this access to capital thing is extremely important because I've heard some people say it doesn't matter what we do, we can't beat them. So we might as well just join them. Let me speak to Mr. Kofi Kapito, who is the Executive Director for the Consumer Protection Agency. Mr. Kofi Kapito, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages. I'm told you are somewhere in the Ashanti region. Where exactly are you and what's happening there? Even before we get to the main reason why we called you, sir.
To be precise, Kumasi in Ashanti region.
Okay.
This
Right.
is we are undertaking the Alan Walk. That is the headline.
You're participating in the Alan Walk.
Yes, the movement for change.
As a
The
what?
butterfly
As
people.
you're participating
The
in the Alan
butterfly-
Walk as a what?
As a member of the Alan campaign team.
You will be sacked by your party. You can't be hobnobbing with another organization when you're a member of the New Patriotic Party. You can't do
Can
that.
I explain? Can I explain?
Okay, please do.
Every association, as they have the right to fire, any member also has the right to resign. So it is not cast in stone that they have the authority always to sack people. But what I'm saying is, I am a Ghanaian. Yes, I believe in the Allah movement, which is my right, and nobody can take that away from me.
So you're prepared to be sacked, to be dismissed by your party?
You're not getting my point. I am not part of it. So how can I be sacked?
No, but the party says you are either with the NPP.
I've told you, Moro, I've told you. I am not part of the NPP. I am a member of the Alan
Okay.
Change movement.
All right. Okay. I think I get the point now. I get the point. There's no evidence that you're a member of the New Patriotic Party. So what is this thing about the New Patriotic Party is going to sack you? So I get it.
Moro, you didn't call me for.
No, I totally understand. I totally understand. I just wanted to know what the walk was about. That's why.
Out of respect, I stepped out of the walk.
Right.
And I'm talking to you.
Okay,
so
that's fine.
Time does not allow me to do so. If you want any other time,
We
when I
can
get
talk
back
about
to
this.
work,
That's
you can call
fine.
me.
That's fine. That's fine. So tell me about the walk.
The work is massive. You know, I'm sure. I don't know whether your TV is here in Kumasi. If they are, when you look at it, you see how big the work is.
Okay. All right. Has it ended, or you're still on? No.
No. We are still on it. We are now at the do. We started from Bekwa Roundabout.
All right.
We are now on the streets of, which is the Prempe, the second street in Edum.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's go to the main reason why we called you up this morning. It has to do with the new law which is seeking to restrict the importation of some 22 items. One, because we want to boost local production. Two, we want to be able to fix our CD depreciation issues, balance of payment. So where do you stand on this as somebody who speaks for all of us as consumers?
Let me explain something that I, for one, I believe in local production, building the Ghanaian capacity for our businesses to produce for the Ghanaian to use it, as it pertains in a lot of the countries in the world. But there's something that you need to understand, which is the right of the consumer or the choice. It is one of the cardinal principles of the consumer. If the government wants to boost the local production, I'm for it. Not just 100%, 110%. But if you don't have an alternative, and I repeat, if you don't have an alternative, it makes it difficult for the consumer even to believe in that fine proposal that is being put forward by government.
So your point is, in principle, you don't have a problem with us restricting the importation of these items, but there's got to be an alternative. If there's no alternative, then let's shelve it.
Yeah, why not? Because look, we are talking about banding rice, right?
Yes.
Has the government even actually done any statistics to know exactly how the local rice growers, what tonnage are they producing now? And if they are not, how long would they take to do a catch-up to be able to get to the numbers that we want? Sugar, same thing. A lot of the items, yes, some Ghanaians are trying, but it is not enough. So before you can do that, we need to be self-sufficient. Remember, back in the Champions days, the Champion was able to increase the production of the Ghanaian local production, even to the extent that for the first time in so many years, Ghana was able to export excess food to neighboring countries. The question is, as it stands, we are importing from the neighboring countries. We are importing onions, tomatoes, plantain, even plantain. So how do we, at this point, decide that we are going to ban some of these items, which will make it difficult for the Ghanaian consumer to have a variety and choose? Look, we are not in Russia. Even Russia doesn't do that anymore. This is a liberal economy. It is about competition. It's about choices. And we cannot have price control. Let me repeat. People think government can control price. Government cannot control price. The only time government can control price is government also set up a factory. And government says that I, the person who is manufacturing it, this is the price that I want it to be retail. Then government can control it.
So, but Nigeria has done it. Why can't we?
Nigeria has done what? When Nigeria did it, Obasanjo actually went into farm production. Okay? And guess what? Unfortunately, just like Nigeria, Ghana, we've been allowed to do things that maybe ordinary we shouldn't have been allowed to. We've acquired a taste. Nigerians eat what is called a broken rice. Do you think Ghanaians will eat broken rice? Mora, I'm asking you a question.
Well, I don't eat broken rice. I'm wondering how many people do. Mr. Joe Jackson doesn't eat broken rice.
I'm just saying. So unless, of course, you're telling me that, first of all, the broken rice, I try it and I like it, and I say, you know what, I'm not going to have the taste for perfume rice anymore. Look, not too long ago, we were able to promote the local rice that was being produced. Okay, that even it got to a time that it was even difficult for you to find it on the market to buy. So what happened to that? Okay, the rice that is used to do shinkafa and all those things. The question is, what happened to it? Okay, when I was growing up, as a young man in Kumasi, we have these things. Okay, so the question is, where did we go wrong? Why did we allow, first of all, for the Ghanaian consumer to be able to have so many choices and get accustomed to it? Be careful, you are doing this for the people of Ghana. If the same people are telling you that, be careful, then you should listen to them. Look, like I said, I support if they can find a way to make it possible that, yes, we will have the local production going on. We will have people who will produce sugar, people who will produce rice, people who will go into tomato farming, people who will go into onion farming. Let me ask you a question. What is the climate difference between the northern part of Ghana and Burkina Faso? How come Burkina Faso is able to do onions and tomatoes better than us? What are they doing right that we are not doing the same? So if Ghanaians prefer the tomatoes and the onions coming from Burkina Faso, then it is up, one, to government, two, for the Ghanaian farmer to find a way to cultivate the local tomato that will compete with the ones coming from Burkina Faso. Then the consumer will say, yes, it's tomato for tomato or onion for onion, so I'll buy the one made in Ghana.
I see. I've heard, finally before you go, I've heard a trade minister say, look, don't be worried, be rest assured that when this law gets to be passed, we would look at the items that are in short supply or the items that we haven't yet been able to produce enough, and we'll make sure that the importers import equal volumes of that items to be able to meet the local demand. Is this something that should give you some, you know, how do you call it? What's the word? Is this something that should give you some, should calm you down, sort of?
Moro, I don't know if you remember, before 1979,
right?
Government under the Champon regime, even under Nkrumah and Busia, Ghana was the sole importer of all major commodities into the country, which I mean government. So at a certain point, they introduced what is called the import license. The import license was issued to individuals. As these people are now trying to come to, guess what? It created what is called advantage to some of the importers. People actually created artificial shortage on the market and then started extorting excessive profit. So government said, no, I'm going to do what is called price control. If you remember.
Yes.
So government will say that I imported the rice. I delivered the rice to the wholesaler. Fine. The wholesaler can only sell it at this percentage. The wholesaler said, I won't do it. So the person is to create artificial shortage for demand. Even the goods were in Ghana. Then Rawlings come and says, no, this is not good. That is why Rawlings, you remember they say Kalabule, you remember?
Yes.
Rawlings said that people who were doing hoarding and all that, they were called Kalabule people. So Rawlings decided that let's get rid of this government importation. Let's do trade liberalization. So under the stewardship of His Excellency Jerry Rawlings, Ghana decided to do trade liberalization.
Okay.
So we took away the control of government being the sole importer of all commodities through the import license regime.
Okay.
So now it's a free market. Any individual, any Ghanaian who feels he has money or can go and find money has the right to go and import whatever he wants, as long as they pay the correct duties and taxes. Nobody can tell him not to bring it.
Okay.
So if government wants us to go back to what I call the import license, because basically it's something like that that they are trying to bring back.
Okay.
If they tell you that people need to come and apply, and then they will look at it, then it's government control.
Okay.
I mean, in this world, I'm sure, is Mr. Joe Jackson there?
Yeah, he's here.
Ask Mr. Joe Jackson. Even China is not doing that anymore.
Right.
Even Russia is not doing that anymore. Okay, so we cannot go back to the dark ages and say that government is going to control. What I want government to do is to make facilities available for the Ghanaian business people who wants to engage in production. Lower lending rates, taxes and levies reduced, and all those things for us to go. That is what China did. That America at one point, the labor cost was too much. America shipped almost 80% of their businesses to China. Henceforth, China becoming the superpower. So let's assume that even on the West Coast, which Ghana is viewed as in terms of some of the international indexes, Ghana is supposed to be one of the best places. Then why can't we create that environment? Remember, we did free zones, right? When we did the free zones, what has happened to the free zones? 90% of the people who are in the free zones, they don't produce and even sell to the people of Ghana.
Okay.
There is chocolate that I will find in supermarkets when I go to Europe or America. I can't find that supermarket at the very high stores in Ghana. I'm talking about these so-called multinationals. So why are we doing this to ourselves? Government has a role to play. We Ghanaians also have a role to play. So what I'm saying is, yes, if we can do it right, as other countries have done it, but it's not even everything. It's not even everything. Let's look at the advantage, okay, comparative advantage that Ghana has. We can say that, yes, we will do that so that in the West Africa economy, people will come and buy. You remember when Nigeria banned the importation of a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know Nigerians were coming to Ghana to come and buy them because of the ECOWAS treaty. And as long as they bring them from ECOWAS, the government of Nigeria had nothing to do with it. But these were goods not made in Ghana.
Okay. Now, Mr. Joe Jackson has just declared that he's prepared to do a one-month demonstration in Parliament, if need be, to register his serious reservations about this bill. What do you intend? Do you have any? Yes.
I said, tell him it's two now because I will join him.
Oh, you join him? Okay.
Yes.
That's a big shot in his arm. I mean, if you're going to join him.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Tell him. You see, you know what?
Yes.
I'm tired of people who are in charge of our lives who don't go into proper data and research, and some from political expedience, some political gains, make statements that they know that they implement. And that thing annoys me. I don't remember my parliamentarian, I don't know whether your parliamentarian even told you that the government is even thinking about doing this. In other jurisdictions, these things would be discussed.
Yeah, thoroughly.
At quarters that matters.
Right.
So that inputs. Look, let me tell you what, when I was in the United States, I drove a taxi for a bit, right? You pick somebody in Washington, D.C. at the main train station. You ask the guy, he says he's going to the U.S. Congress. Where is he from? He's from Georgia. Why is he in Washington? He has heard that the government is about to bring a law that will make the peanut or the groundnut growers in America find it difficult for them to do their business.
Okay.
So the Peanut Association of Georgia has sent him to come and tell his representative that we are telling you, we don't want you to vote in favor of this bill. But if you choose to vote, don't count on our votes when it comes to elections time. That is what the people have power. Not when the 275 people sit somewhere. Okay, without even thinking about the larger population, which is almost 30 million people, and then decide for us. It is wrong. It is not right. We should have a lot of discussions. We should see how we can make it better. Like they say, Enyansa, Enibaku Futi.
Okay. Mr. Kofi Kapito, thank you so very much. I wish you all the best as you embark on this Alan walk for today, and also as you embark on this effort to try and, fight on our behalf to get this bill perhaps not to be passed. Thank you so very much and have a good day.
All right.
All right. Mr. Kofi Kapito is the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Protection Agency. He's sharing his perspective on the import restrictions regulations law, which the Trade Minister intends to pass, lay in Parliament. In fact, it's suffered about 3 setbacks already. We tried it first time, it didn't work. Second time, third time, it's not working.
We hope it will never work.
Yeah, well, but back to this issue. But can we compete with Vietnam in terms of the cost of production?
Okay, but
that's the
even
point
before I go to the Vietnam issue, and I'll come to the Vietnam issue.
Right.
The issue simply is this. You're telling us that when the licensing regime is in place,
yes,
you will now go and find statistics as to whether to allow imports or not. Why are the statistics not before?
Yeah, it should have been before. I agree with you. So for instance, when he says that, and I'm going to just quote him verbatim, he says that the intention is not to completely ban the importation of product, but rather implement some restrictions with a keen eye on maintaining equilibrium on the local food supply chain. We are not banning, we're restricting, but it will be restricted to the extent that we don't create famine in the country. That's what he said.
My friend, where are the statistics?
Okay, all right. I get that. I'm gonna let me also.
Let me talk about
that. Then you can because I want us to move to
the issue really is this: you got to give them higher yields.
Okay.
Right, and higher yields are a problem.
Right.
Because it's the low yields that make us unable to compete with Vietnam.
Right.
Of course, low cost of financing. Is part of it.
But before you go to the cost of finance, the yields issue, is it that the higher yields are more expensive?
No, they're not. So we just have to have our you see, we've withdrawn extension services.
Okay.
That's one of the things we've done. We've withdrawn extension services.
They are
not there. Now you should have.
Where are they? Where have they gone? Who has sacked them? Well, that's another conversation for them. Yeah. Well, they are not there. Yes. Because that's about the yield issue. Yeah.
My issue is this. If you go to his farm,
yes,
and you show him that he will make 10 times the yield with another strain of rice,
yes,
right, and that you give him a combined harvester that is available in the plant pool, so that he can get it and harvest early, why would he say no?
Yeah.
Why would Honorable Botara say no?
Yeah.
The farmers, they're not stupid.
Right.
They see a good thing when you have it. Just show them the good thing.
Right.
Then when they are producing, their next fear is that when I produce, can I sell? When you have, why don't you even, I will support government even partnering another firm to set up another mill in addition to Avnash, and see, not only would I intervene with the farmers,
okay,
I would set up another mill. Give incentives for another mill to be set up so that you see, we are driving towards self-sufficiency in rice production, or even 50% sufficiency.
Okay.
And that drive is motivated by A, B, C, and D interventions.
Okay.
One of the interventions being that as our production is rising, we will use import licensing to restrict it.
Okay.
In any case, what are taxes for? You don't like the rice that is coming, tax it. Make me more competitive.
Right.
Right? But you are taxing him. You are taxing the fertilizer. You are taxing every little input
that goes into the production.
Yes.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Talk about poultry.
Right.
Same thing. As for access to finance, it is the big elephant in the room. And let me state this. No way you're going to get financing. You know why you're not going to get financing? Because if the government is borrowing at 33% on T-bills, why should I lend to you?
Right.
And at what rate should I lend to you? If our reference rate is at 33, why should I lend to you? And what rate should I lend to you? And how can you make a profit? So you see, that big elephant in the room is access to finance for our agri sector.
Right.
And unless we get to a place where we can cushion our farmers.
Right.
And it should be, you see, nothing is for free. It's not going to be, it's going to be an intentional effort to improve production, local production.
Okay.
It is going to be a contrived effort to improve local production, of which market restrictions may be one more tool to use.
There's actually another angle to this. WTO rules.
Thank you.
WTO
after rules.
After rules. And even IMF. Apparently, IMF has serious issues, or would have serious issues with IMF, because apparently, in the IMF's own document, it talks about exactly, and that we should do that. It encourages that. And one person who's just drawn my attention to it is the Honorable Mahama Yariga. He's just sent me a WhatsApp message. It says, well, he's watching, he's listening to us, and it's something that we need to. So I've actually asked him to come and throw some more light on it. He shared me some copious, volumes of documents to buttress the point he's just making. So I'm going to get him to throw some more light. He's also a lawyer, so
he has been a deputy minister.
Exactly. So he knows exactly what. So you see, he doubles as both. He comes in with so much competence in that area. So, Honorable Mahama Yariga will join us to share his view on this. But let me also say, those of you asking about where's the MPP rep, the MPP has not been able to bring us a rep. And I said it at the beginning of the show that I think that there's some internal issues that the MPP has got to deal with, because I know exactly what I'm talking about. I've spoken to quite a number of people. There are issues. And so, Richard Ahiagba and your colleagues, you would have to sit up and sort out these issues so that we can get your reps to come to us happily, to come and defend government policies and programs. It's extremely important, because all is not well. That's the point I'm making. All is not well. You've got to sort it out. Let me read these messages before I bring you in, before I bring Honorable in for his concluding remarks, before we move to Kisi Ejabeng. He has issues with the judiciary. And generally the system. The fact the system is not being supportive of his fight against corruption. So this one here says that the import restriction law will simply result in a retaliatory action by Ghana's trade partners. This is why WTO frowns on such trade wars. President Kufuor tried it in poultry, but had to abandon it. We should rather cleverly explore the use of standards, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, right? to discourage some of these, WTO allows these. Okay, like protectionist policies. The WTO doesn't have a problem with that. I hope I got that correctly. So let's go to the second one. Salam from Somanya says, good morning. I think this is the best policy that the government in the Fourth Republic has conceived. I don't think that your panelists are suggesting that there would be no initial problems with this. Just like free SHS, double track was dealt with and all the problems associated with this policy will be dealt with accordingly. Our only problem is that it should have been me and not them. Okay, Salam from Somanya. So he's thinking some people are kicking against because the MP that's bringing it, if it's to NDNDC. But it's not about who's bringing it, it's about the policy. And I think you've got to appreciate that. Now, good morning, Mr. Moro. I'm not surprised that the airline is coming from Honorable K.T. Hammon. He's never been, I don't like the word you're using in this country. He says he forgets that he's the one carrying the coconut. Okay, Tajuddin from Tamale. So the choice of words. I don't find them worthy. I'm sorry. Otip Boateng says that my former boss, Joe Jackson, is making a solid point. I think they could have empowered the local production and the importers who struggle and fade out gradually without these arguments. It's coming from Otip Boateng. So I think that you agree with those who say sort out the local issues and the rest will take care of itself. I think that's the point we're saying. My only example to you, I'm going to come back to you, but my only example to you is the restriction on the export of soya bean imposed by Alan. The licenses were issued to only their cronies and only a few party people are doing the exports in very huge volumes, as it was the same during the open to all environment. They were especially given to their party members and they intend to sell to the real exporters. Mate from Tema. I'm not too sure. I'm not too clear in my mind what exactly you're suggesting. This one here says that Mr. Joe Jackson, Honorable Murtala Mohammed. Good morning, Mr. Moro. Please, I'm into road safety management, and the capital requirement for this business endeavor is $1,362,000, which is $113,000 US. Now, this investment will enable us to establish and expand our operations, thereby maximizing our potential for success. It says, based on our projections, we anticipate, blah, blah, I'll be happy to speak to Mr. Joe. Okay, this is actually not meant to be read on air, but you want to speak to Mr. Joe Jackson for some support? Well, he'll be happy to. So he'll speak to you after the show, no problem. That's come from John Kobe Anderson, Save Journey Ghana, Africa. He says he's got some business idea he wants to talk to you about. Now, the current government has failed. I agree with your panel. We are suffering today because of poor leadership. And if this ban policy isn't planned out well, it will bring more hardship on the local consumer. That's coming from Mameya in Adenta. Good morning, Moro. Your guests are on top of the issues. Both of them have Ghana at heart. It's coming from Alhaji Yakubu from Sagnerego Kukuo, Marigas Honorable Murtala. I don't know the rationale behind this import regime. The NPP is introducing now. I haven't heard them speak on import substitutions. There's no massive local production of the products they are banning. I would have loved the government to reduce interest rate for our local producers, manufacturers to 0%. That's so that they can compete favorably, not this barbaric and draconian import regime. Ghanaians, if we allow this, we must get ready for Q again. It happened before, and it is likely to happen again through this NPP-led government. This one says, I really love the courage of this man. You'll be an enemy, but never think of think of that so you can continue to be. Okay, so I'm not sure about what exactly you want to say. This one here says that I like Honorable Murtala Mohammed for his forthrightness. I think that he's a great guy, very intelligent, very sharp, and very knowledgeable. That's coming from Nana. What's the pronounce that name? Okay, but actually Nana Champo. I think that's the thing. Okay, so welcome back. This is Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Audu Moro. We've been having a very interesting conversation about the law to restrict some selected items, 22 of them, which the Trade Minister intends to put before Parliament for Parliament to pass. Once it is passed, these items are going to be decided on based on a certain committee that's formed by the same minister, and then they will determine whether indeed you should bring in those items and at what volume, and so on and so forth. People have serious raised some serious reservations with the policy itself and the mode of implementation. One of it is Honorable Murtala Mohammed. For him, he says he's suspicious. He thinks it's about, it amounts to robbery, thievery. He uses all kinds of words to describe this policy. I also mentioned that I'll be joined by the Honorable Mahama Yariga, who's a member of parliament for the Bawku Central, who has actually drawn my attention to another aspect of the conversation we probably haven't paid that much attention to. This policy and its relationship with the IMF program we are currently undergoing, and also the WTO rules. Now, he's going to be explaining that for us to understand why he thinks that this perspective is extremely important and why Ghanaians must pay attention to it. So, when the Honorable Mahama Yariga, remember that he's also been a deputy trades minister before under the Honorable Hannah Tete, I believe, when she was trades minister, and so he knows that's the angle he's coming from. That's where he's coming from. He's been there. He's also a lawyer, and so he knows exactly what he's going to be talking about. So the Honorable Mahama Yariga will be joining us shortly, and then when we're done, we'll move to the Kisei Jabing. We'll call it Wahala. You know, he's held a news conference and he's been complaining about lack of support from the judiciary in his quest to fight corruption. And he's not a happy man at all. He's not a happy man at all. We'll play you some tapes for you to know exactly what we're talking about. So, Honorable Mahama Yariga will be joining us shortly. But whilst we're waiting for him so I can see him now. He's appeared on Zoom, in his very nice, how do you call it, Lacoste t-shirt. I know he loves his Lacoste. You know, my only challenge with him is he doesn't buy me some of these Lacoste. This is where he wears them alone. You know, Honorable, is this a Gucci Lacoste or it is locally produced?
No, this is Lacoste. It's not locally produced.
Okay. Anyway, Salaam Alaikum. It's good to see you, and thank you very much. You think that there's an aspect... Right. There's an aspect of this conversation we haven't really drawn our attention to, and based on the information you've sent to me, I noticed that, look, this is something we really must look at, and which has to do with the IMF's own position on what we're trying to do, or what we're trying to do in relation to what the IMF expects of us, and also the WTO rules. Walk us through why you think this is important, and what is it that you think Ghanaians must know?
Well, I mean, you know that we have a $3 billion IMF facility, and it is subject to certain conditionalities.
Right.
One of those really is that Ghana, during the implementation of this IMF policy, should not impose restrictions on imports for the purposes of achieving balance of payments issues resolution. So basically that is it. It's a clear condition in the IMF package. And so when I saw that the Trade Ministry was busy pushing this whole restriction thing, I was beginning to wonder whether the Trade Minister is talking to his counterpart at the Ministry of Finance, and indeed whether or not this whole idea even passed through Cabinet. If it passed through Cabinet, was the Minister of Finance in Cabinet? And if the Minister of Finance was in Cabinet, did he advert his mind to the fact that he's going to sign a $3 billion package with the IMF and had signed on to not allow restrictions to be imposed for the purpose of balance of payment issues? So if you look at the restrictions regulation, you'll find out that the regulation expressly, mentions that the whole idea is partly to deal with the problem of balance of payments. So it is for this reason that I thought it necessary to draw attention to the issue of the commitments that we have made to the IMF. And the impression I get is that the Finance Ministry and the Trade Ministry are not working together. I mean, that's honestly the impression I get. Right. I don't think that they are working together. Mm-hmm. I think that the Trade Ministry is probably not listening to the Finance Ministry, or that the finance ministry is unable to speak to the trade ministry. And I don't know if the entire government as a machine is really holding together on this particular policy intervention that they are proposing.
Or if the trade ministry is talking to the finance ministry, they're not having the right conversation.
Not at all, because they don't seem to understand that, one is heckling the other. Mm-hmm. The trade ministry is obviously heckling the finance ministry.
Right.
Because if all the other countries who are party to the IMF start raising and red flagging this issue, we're going to be in trouble. And if you consider the fact that we're in a very serious financial situation and we badly need this IMF money, and if the trade minister is seen obstructing the money coming, I don't know how the finance ministry is going to respond to the situation. So I get the picture of a chaotic government, a government that just doesn't seem to gel together. They don't seem to be talking to each other. And I'm not surprised that thus far this country is in the chaos that we find ourselves. Mm.
But the thing is, don't you find it a bit strange that you have one minister who attempts to lay a law like this in power, or bring a law like this to Parliament, and the finance minister is quiet about it? The deputy finance minister is in Parliament as well. Even if the finance minister is not there, the deputy finance, in fact, the two deputy finance ministers are in Parliament, Abena Osei-Asare and Dr. John Kumah. How did this escape them? For them to say, hey, hold on a minute, something is not right with this. You're going to be creating problems for us as far as our attempt or our efforts to, go for this IMF, credit facility is concerned. I mean, how come this has escaped all of them?
Well, I mean, like I said, it can only escape them if, one, the finance ministry itself is very lazy and is not paying attention to the conditions that they signed on to. Either they signed the conditions while sleeping, and so they probably didn't notice that they have committed themselves to not imposing restrictions, and therefore, of course, when their colleague at Trade Ministry brought those proposals, they did not even know that they have signed on to IMF conditionalities that make it impossible for them to do what they are proposing to do, or that they know about it, but the trade minister just doesn't talk to them. Mm. And so they had no way of drawing his attention to the consequences of what he is about to do. Mm. Otherwise, it also means that the cabinet is a sleeping cabinet, sleeping in the sense that such a major policy intervention ought to have passed through cabinet. And if it passed through cabinet, was the finance ministry people at cabinet? And did the trade ministry that is proposing it do a thorough analysis of the country's situation and policy commitments before even jumping to such, a proposal? So if that happens, then, it just means that our situation is worse than we thought it is. Mm. Worse in the sense that we have a cabinet that is not meticulous at all about what it is doing. And if the situation that we find ourselves in as a country is anything to go by, and if that is how we have been governed over the past 7 years, I'm definitely not surprised that we're in this kind of mess. Mm.
You say this is a reflection of some confusion or crisis with government's sense of unity of purpose, i.e., there appears to be a lack of a collective agreement or a collective decision on the direction of the economy and the government in so financial management.
No, definitely, okay. Definitely. And the interesting thing is that I can tell you that somebody like the sitting vice president, who is now the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party, in 2014, 2016, he delivered a series of lectures on the economy. And at that time, you know, he was very critical of the NDC government's attempts to consider restriction of imports. And if you read his lectures delivered, you know, in 2014, 2016, the state of the economy, a foundation of concrete or straw, and then the earlier ones, the IMF bailout with the anchor hold, and then the first one, restoring the value of the city, where he was speaking as a distinguished professor of economic governance. He was very clear in those lectures that, you know, importation of restrictions don't generally work. They don't work. I mean, for you to really industrialize, you need a complementary set of institutions and facilities and infrastructure. And I, from my experience in my days as a Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry, can tell you that, honestly, I don't believe that restriction of imports really does work. You may create a few monopolies in the country. You may enrich a few already rich people at the expense of the population, because you're going to prevent cheaper commodities from coming into the country, and you're going to put in the hands of a few monopolies in the country the power to control the supply of critical commodities that the population will need. And they are going to be very inefficient at it, because you have huge utility cost bills, you have huge labor cost bills, you have huge taxes. And so generally, you know, your infrastructure cannot support the efficient and less costly production of the items. So in the end, you're going to pass on this inefficiency in the form of higher prices to the population, to the benefit of the few monopolies that you have created. So if we really investigate what is happening, I won't be surprised if behind it one or two, you know, potential monopolists who are using the Trade and Industry Minister to create a monopoly for themselves at the expense of the general population, who will pay in the form of higher prices, because they're going to produce at inefficient prices, because the system itself is inefficient. Now, these monopolies are going to be borrowing at 30 to 40% interest rates to produce these items. How are they going to compete with, how are these prices going to compete with Chinese manufacturers who will be borrowing at less than 3%? How are they going to compete with European manufacturers who will be borrowing at less than 5%? So clearly, you know, you are going to generate inefficient prices and pass it on forcefully to the population by imposing the restrictions on imports. How are they going to compete, you know, with countries that are selling electricity at lower rates per kilowatt cents? I mean, so clearly, you see that you haven't created the enabling environment for the manufacturing industry to produce at competitive prices. And yet, you are going to shut the borders so that cheaper products don't come in. And so if you read even the lectures of Bawumia himself, and I'm shocked that he's sitting quietly whilst this is taking place, when in 2016, he was very, very vociferous in condemning import restrictions and saying that they don't solve the problem. And he didn't believe in them as solving the problem unless you have dealt with the wider ecosystem of a competitive manufacturing sector.
Yeah, but there's always but there's always a reality check, Honorable.
Well, what's the reality check? Because the lectures are still here. I have them. I have printed copies. I have been reading them copiously.
Right.
And I can assure you that everything that he does that conflicts with any of the things that he says in his lectures are pointed out to him. We just waited for him to be in government for 7 years to see whether he'll be able to implement any of the things that he had in his lectures. I have done the checklist, and on everything that he has said in his lectures, he has failed. From interest rates to banking sector fragility to exchange rates to everything that you can talk about, he has woefully failed as leader of the economic management team, and this import restrictions thing that is being bandied around as the solution to our industrialization problem is yet another, manifestation of the frustration and the lack of seriousness of this government.
So this bill should be thrown out of the window. We should reject it.
It's in the interest of government, in view of the commitments that they have made to the IMF at this stage, because they can't do without this $3 billion. It's in their own interest to stop doing what they are trying to do, because it doesn't help them.
All right, well, thank you so very much. But please hang in there. Don't leave us. If you can, please hang in there, because we're going to, in the next few minutes, we're going to start a conversation about KC Ejabing. And it will be very interesting to pick your thoughts on what you make of the issues he's raised at that press conference that he held on Thursday. So, Honorable, if you don't mind, can you hang in there so we can come back to you like in 10 minutes?
Sure, definitely.
Thank you so very much. So, Honorable Mahama Ayariga will be joining us for a conversation on KC Ejabing. Let me come to Honorable Murtala now. Honorable Murtala, what are your concluding remarks? So you're going to reject this, obviously, but we're told that the Trade Minister and some government officials are trying to meet, the minority as a group to try and arrive at some, or nothing like that is happening.
Our position is uncompromising.
Okay, right.
And I think that the intervention of my brother Ayariga is timely. It is not only the IMF agreement. If you check the WTO rules,
right,
particularly, Article 11 of GATT, the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, it frowns upon any form of restriction, particularly when the restriction is on quantitative restriction. And when I say quantitative, when a restriction is sought to prevent either the exportation or the importation, particularly of goods and certain essentials into a country, it frowns upon that.
Right.
Ghana was one of the first countries in the world to sign the WTO agreement and ratify it same. So Ghana is a leading member as far as the WTO rules are concerned. For us to be seen, flouting the very rules that we were active participants in formulating for the general acceptability of the international community, for me, is telling. But one thing that I want to look at has to do with even the LI itself. What Mr. K.T. Hammond, or Honorable K.T. Hammond, is seeking to do, he's seeking Parliament to give him the exclusive power and authority to determine who imports what into this country. We've already established, beyond any doubt, that the purpose for this LI has nothing to do with the protection of our domestic industries. It has to do with robbing the state and lining the pocket of those who are engaged in it. What we have argued in Parliament as an opposition to this bill is that we feel that no individual, not even the president, should be given absolute authority to determine who imports what into this country. And that's what the law is seeking to do.
Right.
2, if you read in Section 11, subsection 3 III of the law, it says that the particulars of the principal officers, directors, and partners of the company or firm should be made known. If you look at it under an application for the import permit under Sub-Regulation 1, shall be made in writing or online as set out in second schedule. So what kind of law is this? That the minister must be informed of the principal directors and actors behind a company that is seeking or applying to be given the license to import ABCD into this country. If the purpose is not to witch hunt so-called business entities or importers who are deemed not to be members of a political party.
Right.
So that is one. Again, it is given the minister so much power. And in his defense, in fact, the power is he has the exclusive right to determine who is given the license or whose license is renewed. And when we raise this issue, his defense is that, there is going to be a license permitting committee, and that committee will make recommendations to he, the minister, to implement. when there is nothing in this LI that suggests that any recommendation that is made by the committee will be binding on the minister. So assuming the committee decides Mr. Jackson Company should be given a license, or the license of your company be renewed, the minister can decide to respect the recommendation of the committee or not. And nothing can prevent him from doing so. Right. So if the recommendation of the committee is that give this company the license, the minister says, I'm not going to give the license. Nothing. I mean, the recommendations of the company is not binding, strictly speaking, on the minister. Right. Again, that particular committee is made up of political appointees. The minister for trade is a political appointee, or if he is represented by the deputy minister on the committee. All the other ministries, Ministry of Agric, Ministry of Finance, the person who represents the ministry is appointed by the minister. And that person should be not below a director. So not below a director, the minister can decide to appoint the deputy ministers to represent. And mind you, knowing the compromises of some public officers with regards to their dealings and activities in the various ministries, for not wanting to be seen as antagonizing the political position of the minister, they succumb to the whims and caprices of those ministers. So it means that the very people who are going to be appointed by the various ministers to represent the ministry on the committee are all going to be political appointees, or they will be answerable to a political authority. If you look at Food and Drugs Authority, the CEO there is a political appointee, unfortunately. You look at all the other agencies, the Ministry of Interior, the ministry, the appointees are all going to be influenced, even if they are not politicians. Whatever the political authority wants for them to do at the company, at the committee, that's what they do. So one, you can have abuse of the authority of the committee itself. So someone may be qualified for the purposes of the license. If the committee has a problem with that person, they will not recommend that the minister give the person the license. Or someone's license, someone may be qualified, met all the requirements for the license to be renewed, but because they have a problem, they will recommend. That's where the political influence starts. Then the minister level. Now, because to support that point, why would you have that in a proposed LI? That the particulars of the principal officers, directors and partners of the company or the firm be made known. Directors and partners. So you may have a company which is deemed to be, let's say, pro-government company, for example. But those you are partnering to bring in those goods, the minister can decide that we don't want to do business with this. But you see, the danger about it, it is not just MPP minister. And if you listen to my debate on the floor on this matter, my position humbly is that this thing can be abused even by an NDC minister for trade. True. So today, MPP is in office. The Minister for Trade is an MPP person. He can use it to witch hunt businessmen who are deemed to be NDC businessmen. Tomorrow, inshallah, NDC comes to power in 2025. A Minister for Trade can also use it to deal with a businessman they consider to be MPP. Why is it that, first and foremost, the minister even lied? He said that they consulted the various stakeholders. The most important stakeholder in this matter of importation in this country is Guta. Guta said we're not consulted. Yet the minister had factored into the LI, the proposed LI, the consultation which involved Guta. Now, to support the point Mr. Jackson made earlier, it was not a well thought through policy. If it was, on what basis did they initially include cement producers? Cement was one of the items they included. Only for the minister to amend, after the backlash, amend the proposed LI, and then he has taken off cement from the list of items. It is also important to just make that the import permit, and if you check in section 11 subsection 2, no, 12 subsection 2, the import permit committee shall within 15 days after vetting an application for the import permit make a written recommendation to the minister to grant or refuse to grant the permit. So it means that even the decision of the committee, it is taken at the behest of the minister, that to grant or not to grant. But what is significant is that even if your company is rejected,
yes,
if your application for a license or renewal of same is rejected by the minister, the person or the entity you can appeal to again is the minister.
True.
So the minister decides that Moro's company, I won't give them the license, I won't renew the license.
Yeah.
That 14 days after that, you don't have the obligation, the right to appeal. And the person you appeal to is the minister. It simply doesn't make sense. The reasons why the minister rejected your, application, what would be the basis on which he rescinded on the decision that he has made?
I think it's a very valid question.
So I think that it is important for us to look at some of these issues.
Okay.
One, it is a complete disastrous proposed LI.
Right.
It is not well thought through.
Okay.
It is not just on the basis of the financial obligations that we have entangled ourselves with the IMF as Honorable Ayarga. It frowns upon the WTO rules, specifically, Article 11 of GATT.
Okay.
It frowns upon it. It is also going to, like he said, a retaliatory measure.
Right.
In fact, the AFTA, which I stated earlier, frowns upon everything that AFTA has to do.
Okay.
And how could this have happened at a time when government in Ghana is hosting the secretariat?
Yeah.
It simply doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It frowns upon that. So it is not an issue of not only well thought through.
Okay.
It's a disastrous decision.
Okay.
And that comes back to the point I made earlier. It has nothing to do with the protection of the local industries.
Okay.
It has to do with lining the pocket of the
You mean
minister.
there's an ulterior motive. Mr. Joe Jackson, so in a nutshell, what are you saying? You say we should reject it?
We should definitely reject it.
Okay.
And not just reject it in all forms.
Okay.
This is not a policy to boost local production. This policy, this bill will result in the poor man suffering and the politician smiling.
Right. Interesting. So this is where we draw the curtain on the conversation about the import restrictions law, which the Trade Minister intends to, get Parliament to pass. It hasn't happened yet.
He asked a question.
Yes.
He asked a question. The question Mr. Jackson asked earlier was that where is the statistics?
Okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Data.
The data.
It's not there.
The minister is aware of the data.
Okay.
Because even if he's not aware, when he brought this issue, all the associations and the minority and those who oppose it provided the minister with the contrary data that you don't do this when you have less than 1% of production capacity of a local poultry farmers. When you are not able to produce enough rice, when you don't produce a single kilo of sugar, and to be very honest, many of the items that are there, the minister should know. As the minister for trade, they are there, they are available.
I don't think it's an issue if he doesn't have it.
Yes.
He doesn't deem it necessary to share. Anyway, so let's end it here.